What's going on? Jake here with Uncommon EDC. Today we're finally going to be taking a look at the Ozark Trail 7.5 inch folding knife, aka model T2203R1-11. I know, a name that really rolls off the tongue, but don't worry, I'll make sure to link to it down in the description of the video. Won't be an affiliate link, but at least at the time I'm uploading this video, these are in stock on Walmart's website for $10. And that wasn't the case for a while. These were in such high demand that really the only place you can get them was through scalpers on eBay and paying 3 or 4 times the cost, but that's not the case anymore. Definitely make sure to check directly through Walmart first, as I really don't think these are worth it at the price that scalpers were charging. One of the main values of this knife was that price point of $10, and so if you're paying well over that, it's probably worth it to just get a different knife. Now, the only reason I say finally checking this one out is that this one went ultra viral for being the Walmart Bugout, or even the Bugout killer. And so I never actively tried to seek one of these out, and I probably wouldn't even be making this video if it weren't for the generosity of friend of the channel, Joseph S. He gifted me this as well as one of the other Ozark Trail models at CCKS, and again, this video wouldn't even be happening if it weren't for his generosity. So make sure to show him some love in the comments, in the live stream. He's usually pretty active in the chat and all of that, but thank you again for providing these for me to check out. Now, the reason, or I guess we can't really talk about this knife without first talking about the Bugout, because it is so similar. And so I have both a full-size Bugout. This one is a Supreme collab, so aluminum handles, not quite as similar in materials, but very similar in profile and dimensions. But I also grabbed my mini Bugout, which is a little bit more similar in that it has a coated blade and the FRN scales, a little bit more similar in terms of materials. So first off, in terms of sizing, pretty much identical to the full-size Bugout. We're looking at 7.5 inches overall. Blade length is nearly identical at 3¼ inches. Handle length at 4¼ inches, again, nearly identical. The blade profile also very similar. Not only that they're both drop points, but even the grind lines and the swedges and stuff are pretty similar, although not identical. And that goes for the handles as well. This is where it feels like they made the most changes. They tried to round out some of the corners, change the corners just really across the board, a little bit less in terms of contouring. Our lanyard hole is different. Our pocket clips are actually very different, not only in the mounting style, but the length of them and just style of pocket clip. Also, this one's not ultra deep carry, not reversible either on the Ozark Trail model. And so that's a little bit unfortunate given that it's such an ambidextrous knife, but a lot of major changes to the handles. It's still very similar. Now, the last difference isn't so obvious, and that comes down to the liners. So on a lot of Benchmades, especially with these FRN scales, you only have partial liners that really account for the pivot and the axis lock assembly. And you can see they maybe go 40% of the handle, and the rest doesn't have any. We have some standoffs over here. That's why there's a little bit of flex present. With the Ozark Trail knife, we're getting full liners all the way across, which does give them a little bit more rigidity because this injected molded plastic is a little bit cheaper even than FRN, and you can feel it, you can see it for sure. But with those liners, you get a little bit more rigidity and stability. You're not going to have as much flex because those are steel liners. There is some speed holes in there for a little bit of weight saving, but these do still come in a little bit heavier than their FRN counterparts at about 2.87 ounces, so still pretty lightweight overall. Now, outside of all of those similarities, it's very similar in design, I would say that the Bugout really isn't a direct competitor to this knife. And so that doesn't seem super obvious on the surface, but in reality, there's very few people out there that are in the market for a knife that are choosing between this Ozark Trail knife and a Bugout. The price difference is just so great. The people that are going to be interested in this knife are so different than the people that are interested in the Bugout. There's all the similarities in the design profile, but everything else is different. Our steel is a lesser steel at D2, still a great steel for the price point, but a lesser steel than any of the variants you're going to get in the Bugout or mini Bugout. The coating definitely has that cheaper feel, almost a little bit of a thicker coating that has that glossy finish. Definitely looks and feels a lot better on the Bugout. The handle material, it feels a little bit cheaper, looks a little bit cheaper. You're not getting as much texturing out of that injection molding than you are from the FRN scales that are kind of laser cut out of there. And so that's a little bit cheaper. They're made in China. The steel probably is not heat treated to the same kind of levels that the heat treat on our Bugouts are going to be, although I can't actually verify that one. The overall quality control feels a little bit worse. I got an excellent one right out of the box. The action on this was absolutely perfect, nearly perfect fit and finish. The grind maybe is slightly, just a hair uneven, but pretty nice edge out of the box, and the fit and finish, the action feels perfect. Extremely dialed in detent on here, although they don't have a true detent. That feeling implied detent feels great and incredibly smooth. That's not always the case. You hear about a lot of people getting them and having to dial them in, including Tim over at Tim's School of Fish. He got his and had to spend a couple hours working on it to get it tuned up to the level where it has a good action. That wasn't the case with mine, but that's going to happen more often with the Ozark Trail knife than it is with the Benchmade. And so also, again, made in China, but the huge advantage here is that that price point is maybe a 20th of the price of those Bugouts, and so you are getting a similar profile of knife for a much cheaper cost. And in reality, this is probably 65 to 75% of the knife of that Bugout. So incredibly good value in that regard. A little bit questionable morals. I wouldn't categorize this one as either a clone or a counterfeit, as they did just enough to change it to not fit that category. It's obviously branded under the Ozark Trail brand. They're not trying to pass it off as a Bugout. Still a little bit questionable in terms of that overall design, in my opinion. But otherwise, I think this is more comparable and in greater competition with other knives they sell at Walmart, like the Swiss Tech, the Kershaws, the CRKTs, whatever else is there nowadays, Civivi, and definitely more in competition with those. And then for knife enthusiasts that this wasn't originally, I don't think, made for. I think this was made for people going to Walmart, going camping, just wanted to grab a knife and just something really reliable that they get for cheap. But because it's D2 steel and at such a low price point, it also put itself in competition with other D2 knives that you can find on Amazon or even on Blade HQ, Knife Center, SMKW, all of that, in the $20 to $40 range, where you're getting a little bit more bang for your buck for this knife. And if you get a good one with that good action, it's an incredible value. And so I think it's more in competition with those than with a truly in competition with a Benchmade, but really kind of obviously going to be up to the individual user. Now, as far as the knife itself goes, I've already talked about the dimensions a little bit. 7.5 inches overall, 3¼ inch drop point style blade, D2 steel with that coating. I don't know what type of coating it is. A little bit on the cheaper side. It has that glossy feel and look to it that feels a little bit thicker than it needs to be. The thumb studs are also a little bit more elevated than what you get on the Bugout, which is nice. Plenty of access to that. Obviously I have China on the back. This laser engraving does not come on it. This isn't shots fired from Ozark Trail or anything. That's something that I added. It's just kind of a poke at the rivalry, just a little bit of a fun, you know, we've got Benchmade at home style graphic there, but that definitely is not included. The handles are 4¼ inches, again, in injected molded plastic. These do feel a little bit thicker than what you get on the Bugout. The jimping really doesn't add all that much on the blade or the handles. It's not adding a ton to the grip, but it's definitely not hurting. It doesn't create any sort of hot spots. The one thing I will say I feel on the handle is the pocket clip maybe curls up just a little bit more than it needs to. Every once in a while I'll feel that, but for the most part you don't notice it unless you're really tightening down on that handle. Just in a comfortable grip though, you don't feel the pocket clip at all. So great ergos, very similar again to that Bugout. One thing that's worth mentioning with that pocket clip, not reversible unfortunately. I know we talked about that earlier, and so it's also not deep carry, and it is a different style from the Bugout, so you can't swap out Bugout scales here, but it is identical to the TRM Atom in terms of just where the screw placement is and similar profile. I don't think they're exactly the same, but they are interchangeable. So if you want to upgrade to a Lynch Northwest clip, you can buy the one for the TRM Atom for this particular Ozark Trail model. Some other Ozark Trail models use different style clips, so only for this one, there's a couple others as well, but you can use that TRM clip. Now, you are going to be paying about 3 times the price of the knife at that point for the clip, so I don't know that it's worth upgrading. Honestly, if they ever come out with some aluminum or titanium scales for this, I probably will upgrade it and the clip just for the fun of it. I didn't pay anything for the knife itself, so obviously investing a lot more already in just the laser engraving costs more than what I spent on the knife, and about the same cost as what you would spend on the knife. But I do think it would be just kind of a funny project to have an ultra premium version of these, although I guess you can't go as far as doing a complete reblade with handles and all of that, because then all you're left with is the hardware. So at that point, is it even the same knife? But I do think that would be a somewhat fun project for this one. Overall though, I think this is a really good knife for non-knife enthusiasts. This makes a great gift for people who aren't into knives that just want to have a knife for camping or even to carry daily, but they're not someone who's going to nitpick their gear to the point of perfection and keep upgrading until they find the exact perfect knife. Perfect for those people. Also perfect for knife enthusiasts that are just on a budget, that are looking for a solid beater knife. I think this is perfect in that use case. What I don't know that it really adds much to is someone with a huge, large collection. Like if you already have a Bugout, there's really no point to this one. You're not adding anything to your collection that you were missing. And even in terms of Bugout competitors, there's plenty with similar profiles with a crossbar style lock in the lower price points that you can get that are going to be even better build quality than this. I will say that this one impressed me for the build quality for a $10 knife. But again, that's not always going to be the case. Of course, you can always just return it to Walmart and switch it out for a new one if they still have them in stock. But I do think there's other alternatives out there, and if you already have them in your collection, I don't know that this really adds anything in terms of extra value for this exact configuration of handle or blade style or steel, because I already have similar things in my collection, but still don't think it's too bad of a value. Let me know if you have one of these down in the comments below, if you've tried to pick one up and just haven't been successful, what your thoughts on them are in general. I do have one other one that Joseph gave me, but I don't think I'm going to try and track down the other 2025 model or 2024, the white handled one. I probably won't actively try and track it down. If I come across it, fine, but probably not going to seek that out. The one I am more actively trying to seek out is the new Civivi exclusive. I forget exactly what it's called, maybe Zipper or Zisser or something. It starts with the Z, and so I may try and track that one down. It's like a bundle with a spork and maybe a multi-tool or something like that for $25. That one's of a little bit more interest to me just because it's from a known knife company. But again, would love to hear your thoughts on this one in the comments. If you picked one up, how your QC was, if it had good action like this one, or if you had to spend a lot of time working on that. But appreciate everyone who tuned in. If you enjoyed the video, consider liking, commenting, subscribing, joining the channel as a member, or even checking out some of my other videos that all help the channel out a ton. And as always, hope you have a great one. Take care.